Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we said earlier, we're going to discuss a verse from the fourth canto that describes the importance of preaching, as today marks the commencement of the January Book Distribution Marathon. Dhyaya Sarva Bhuteshu Santushta Yena Ashu Dhyaya Sarva Bhuteshu Santushta Yena Kenava Sarvarindya Pashantyacha Tushadya Shujanardanaha Dhyaya Sarva Bhuteshu Santushta Yena Kenava Sarvarindya Pashantyacha Tushadya Shujanardanaha Dhyaya Sarva Bhuteshu Santushta Yena Kenava Sarvarindya Pashantyacha Tushadya Shujanardanaha Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sahitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raguna Tanvitam Tam Sajevam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Vaidana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Dana Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwanam Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura-Bhakta-Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This verse that we read is being spoken by the great sage Narada Muni to the Prachetas. As you probably know, Narada Muni is one of the 12 Mahajans or spiritual authorities. Svayambhu Narada Sambhu Kaumara Kapilo Manu Pralado Janako Bhisma Bali Vaya Satyavaya. So the 12 authorities, and further, every word of the Srimad Bhagavatam is an authorized statement. So the Prachetas, they have performed very extensive austerities. They performed austerities for 10,000 years. Actually, they were on the planet in Satya Yuga. So actually this verse that we are discussing today was spoken in Satya Yuga. Because even though the Bhagavatam was compiled 5,000 years ago, the Bhagavatam has stories from previous ages. So the Narada Muni always appears at the right time and the right place. So when the Narada Muni appeared in front of the Prachetas, they were very happy to receive him. They offered him in their obeisances and inquired to please enlighten them further about the goal of life. So the Prachetas described just like when sunshine comes out, when the sun rays appear, then the fear of thieves and rogues goes away. So similarly, when a conditioned soul comes in contact with a saintly personality, then his fear goes away. We see that even advanced sages are always anxious to inquire further about the process of spiritual advancement. Over here we see the Prachetas inquiring from Narada Muni. You see Yudhishthira Maharaj inquiring from Narada Muni. You see Yudhishthira Maharaj inquiring from Bhismadev. So in order to make spiritual advancement, we should constantly be inquiring and we should constantly be endeavoring. So Narada Muni again emphasized the importance of devotional service. And he explained how a living entity has different births. The first birth comes from the womb of the mother. That's called Shokra Janma. That's a birth by semen. Then the next birth, Narada Muni explains, is realized when it's an initiation into the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. That's called Sagatya Janma.
That's it.
And then the next birth is realized when you get initiated in the chanting of the Gayatri mantra known as 𝐾𝐤𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿. And he explains that just like pouring water on the tree, on the root, nourishes the entire tree, or putting food in the stomach, nourishes the entire body. Similarly, by serving the Supreme Lord, we discharge all our obligations towards demigods, ancestors, etc. Tushyat yashu janardanaha. Tushyat means to satisfy. And Janardana means the Lord of all living entities. Who is the Lord of all living entities? Kṛṣna Thiyo Bhagavan Swayam. It says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿 𝐼sabhataya. The Kṛṣna is our only master, and all others are his subordinate servitors. So Narada Muni is giving us a formula how to satisfy the Lord very soon, not very slowly, fast, very soon. These days, everybody wants quick results. They call it, it's the world of the instant product. So they want everything fast. So if you want something fast, if you want to please Krishna fast, here is the formula in this verse. This is the formula. So what's the formula? Only 3 points. You don't have to be a big scholar to understand these 3 points. Actually, one who takes in the process of devotional service is better than any scholar. Scholars are only doing academic studies, but those who take the path of devotional service practically engage in service. So the 3-point formula which Narada Muni gives, and I'm sure you've heard it before, is as follows. First is, be merciful to all living entities. Dayaya. Narada Muni says, Dayaya sarva bhuteshu. Sarva bhuteshu means all living entities. So, a Vaishnava, actually, to be a Vaishnava is a very privileged position. And to become a Vaishnava requires endeavor. We are, as I often say, aspiring Vaishnavas. Just like you enroll in the medical school and you hope that after 7 years or 6 years you'll become a doctor. So, we are on a path that will make us a Vaishnava, which means an alloyed a devotee of the Lord Sri Krishna. So, a devotee is merciful and compassionate to all living entities. We don't believe in the philosophy that all living entities don't have a soul. Nor do we believe in the philosophy that some entities with less intelligence have been created for the pleasure of those with higher intelligence. A devotee does not want to harm even an ant. In the 5th canto, you read about Jad Bharat. He was carrying King Rahugana, and he was walking so cautiously that he would not even step over an ant. So now the Muni is saying, show mercy to all living entities, and this includes, of course, the human beings. So the question is, how do you show this mercy or compassion? If you were to ask a common man on the street, everyone would give his own version. Someone may say, give a poor man some money so he can buy a car and live well. Like some drunkards love to give charity to other people so that they can also drink. But when we talk about charity, when we talk about being merciful, when we talk about being compassionate, we talk about giving people the knowledge by which they can become free from the miseries of birth and death. In other words, there's a difference between real compassion and false compassion, real mercy and false mercy. So Prabhupada says, show mercy to all conditioned souls in the purport. And the best way to show mercy, Prabhupada says, is to spread Krishna consciousness. Why is the entire world suffering? Because they don't have Mercedes cars? Or they don't have big Dachas? Why the whole world? For want of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada has said that many times. For want of Krishna consciousness, the whole world is suffering. So how can we remove their ignorance? The whole world is progressing on the assumption that they are these bodies. And to satisfy these bodies, the senses, they're willing to endeavor to any extent. So those who are learned, their business is to endeavor to enlighten others about the importance of Krishna consciousness. It is Prabhupada quotes in the purport the famous words from the 6th canto, Narayan para sarve nag kotashana devyati sarga parvarga narkesha apitulyartha darshana. That a devotee of the Lord, in order to serve the Lord, is willing to travel to the hellish planet. The point is that we have been instructed by the great acharyas and the great sages and the Supreme Lord about the importance of enlightening others. So, Prabhupada again and again emphasized the importance of preaching. Krsna in the Bhagavad Gita, which was first spoken to the Sangha Vivasvan, also explains the importance of preaching in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Yaidam Paramam Guhyam, that of all devotees, the dearmost is one who engages in preaching my glories. So Krishna clearly says, there will never be one more dear to me than one who engages in preaching my glory. So the devotees of this Krishna conscious movement get trained in understanding the importance of being compassionate and helping others. And the best way of helping others is, as Prabhupada said, give them this transcendental knowledge. In other words, engage in preaching activity. When you engage in preaching activity, you're endeavoring in an activity by which you can please the Lord and the Guru Parampara. Now there are many forms of preaching. You can stop every man on the street and tell him, say, you're not this body, you know that? You must engage in service. So there are many different forms of preaching. Just like we have many weapons for preaching in Krishna consciousness. We have the program of prasad distribution, we have the program of Harinam, we have the program of Food for Life, we have so many different programs for preaching. But the major program for preaching is this program of transcendental books. For all the programs, Prabhupada did emphasize this program the most. If you look at our spiritual history, in spiritual life, we do what the great acharyas have done. You see the emphasis on preaching even during the days of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so powerful, he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that when he went on his Sankirtan party, everyone just by seeing them chant would be inspired to also chant and become devotees. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed his close associates to also endeavor to go house to house to enlighten others about this Krishna conscious process. Thakur Bhaktivinoda, at the time Thakur Bhaktivinoda came on the planet, the printing industry had developed, was beginning to develop. During the days of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was no printing industry. But Thakur Bhaktivinoda took advantage of the development of the printing industry by publishing books and then selling his books all over the world. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did the same. And Srila Prabhupada took Bhaktisiddhantaji's orders to heart and encouraged us all to also distribute this transcendental literature. So Janmashtami is not too far. It's only days, about 15 days away. And Janmashtami for the devotee is the most important event, because it marks the day that the Lord appeared on this planet. We don't say he took birth, we say he appeared, Srijami, he manifested himself on this planet. So we should meditate, what best present can we give to the Lord? And the present that will really please Lord, the Supreme Lord the most would be to distribute his transcendental wisdom. After all, what do these books contain? They contain Krishna's Vani, philosophy spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, eternal wisdom. This is eternal wisdom. This wisdom will be taken advantage of for the next 10,000 years. And after 10,000 years, there will be no scope for spreading God consciousness. And this transcendental knowledge doesn't suffer from the defects that ordinary knowledge suffers from. So the best way to show mercy, the best way to please the Supreme Lord, the best offering that each of us could make to Lord Sri Krishna on his birthday would be our endeavor to distribute this transcendental knowledge. Now the ability, the desire, the willpower, the determination to take part in preaching activity is dependent upon our endeavoring to cultivate the seed of devotional service. In other words, you may listen to the philosophy, but unless you follow the philosophy completely, the inspiration will not be there in the heart. Prabhupada very clearly told us preaching is the essence. But right after that he said, purity is the force. In other words, through the medium of purity, or through our endeavors to acquire purity, you get to the point of developing determination. Now purity comes from following the other 2 points that Narada Muni talks about in this verse. The other 2 points that Narada Muni mentions that are also a must for spiritual advancement for everyone is Santustya and Sarvatindya Pashantya. Santustya means be satisfied. Sarvatindya Pashantya cha means engage the senses. So first is Santustya, be satisfied. Now if you look at material society, you will see that actually no one actually is satisfied. We have a tendency to think, if I just get one more thing in life, then I'll be satisfied. But then when you get the next thing, then the mind says, just one more, then you're going to be satisfied. Prabhupada, there's a saying, when you get an inch, you want a mile. You get a little bit, and then you want more. So, in reality, in mature life, no one ever is satisfied. Even the millionaires are desiring to obtain more. But that is the nature of mature life. Through the scriptures and through practical observation, we can see that no one ever is satisfied in his mature endeavors and accomplishments. But a spiritualist is satisfied with what is provided by the will of the Lord. The spiritualist knows that I'm only going to get what is my destined lot and not more than that. Doesn't matter how much you may endeavor, you're not going to get a drop more than what's destined for you. But this is explained by Lord Kapila Dev and expanded in a very lengthy purport by Srila Prabhupada in the 3rd canto. The Lord Kapila Dev explains and Prabhupada expands that a devotee understands it doesn't matter that a devotee is content because he knows that whatever is due as my share, I'm going to get it. There's no point in over endeavoring. Prahlad Maharaj also makes this point. Prahlad Maharaj says, just like distress comes without our begging for it, similarly, your quota of happiness is also come automatically. Of course, the endeavor has to be there, but over endeavor should not be there. Or endeavor at the cost of spiritual life. Sometimes devotees also get in the mentality, okay, let me just work hard and just make money. But then in this process, they sacrifice their spiritual life. So come what may, we should not compromise on the essential elements of our spiritual life. So if you're practicing the process of obtaining purity, then you will be satisfied. If you have spiritual knowledge, then you will be satisfied. If you're not cultivating spiritual knowledge, then you'll constantly be affected by lust, anger, greed, envy, hatred, pride. These are all the enemies of spiritual life. These enemies are identified as the anarthas. And unless we endeavor to eliminate the anarthas, then the anarthas will not go away. So, the endeavor has to be there to obtain the status of purity or to cleanse the heart. Or Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita the austerities of the mind. And one of the factors he lists is simplicity. That's the guiding principle for a devotee's life. Now, when you're endeavoring for purity, with the help of the process of spiritual advancement, beginning with chanting and hearing, then you also are able to gain control over the senses. Sarvarindriyopashantya. This means to control the senses in the mind. The materialist is controlled by his senses and mind. They're slaves of the senses. And to satisfy the senses, they go to any extent. The spiritual philosophy is control the senses, or in other words, take the poison out of the senses. Just like a snake charmer. A snake charmer takes out the poison from the fangs of the snake, from the teeth of the snake. So we have to take out the poison from our senses. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, touch, all these senses are full of poison. In other words, all these senses are unlimited sense enjoy. So you will have to purify the senses. And the process of purification, the process of devotional service that we follow, the process of rules and regulations that we follow, are endeavors in the direction of purifying the mind and senses. So by following the process, then we can purify. The best engagement is to engage the senses in actively serving the Lord. Engage the senses in man's serving Krishna's name, form, pastime and qualities. It is described Krishna's name, nama, form, rupa, his guna, qualities, and lila, activities, pastime. These are the areas of subject matter that a devotee likes to engage in. We take advantage of Krishna's nama, name, by chanting the holy name very attentively. So we take advantage of the holy name by meditating how the holy name is non-different from the Lord. We take advantage of the holy name by meditating how the holy name alone can give one freedom from the cycle of birth and death. We take advantage of the holy name by realizing that just this attentive chanting is enough in Kali Yuga to achieve self-realization. We take advantage of Krishna's form by meditating and appreciating Krishna's wonderful transcendental form. Thanks to technology, you can have such wonderful pictures of deities in ISKCON temples around the world. So meditate on these forms. Then they take advantage of Krishna's unlimited qualities that you read about in Nectar of Devotion. And then you have Krishna's unlimited pastimes that you read about in the Krishna book and other books. The point is that we have to control the senses, as Narada Muni is saying. And you can only control the senses by taking advantage of the process of devotional service. There's no other way how the senses can be controlled. So when the senses are engaged positively, then as Narada Muni says, Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat parvena nirmalam reshikina sevana bhaktir uchate. When the senses are engaged positively in service of Rishikesha, then one can become free of these bodily designations. So when you engage in devotional service, as a result of that, you're able to engage your senses positively, and plus be satisfied with whatever you have. And then you'll automatically be inspired to follow the instructions of the acharyas and to take part in the preaching activity. So, the path for making spiritual advancement has been clearly defined. We don't need to speculate, we don't need to guess. Everything is defined clearly in black and white. In 1932, Prabhupada wrote a very nice Vyaspaja offering to his spiritual master, after which his godmother started calling him Kavi, poet. So in that poem, Prabhupada says, the line of service is clearly drawn by you. So the line of service that we all have to follow in order to make spiritual advancement has been very clearly defined by our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. We just have to, with faith, take advantage of the process. Just like Rupa Goswami says, Utsaha nishchay dharya tat tat karma pravardana sangha tyagya sattvavrede. So he tells us how we can make spiritual advancement. With faith, we follow in the process, the path given by the great acharyas. We don't concoct, we don't speculate. We have seen with our own eyes that those who take advantage of this process are making rapid spiritual advancement. It's not that we only read about great sages in the books. We can see even more in the modern day environment, as ISKCON expands all over the world, there are many devotees in ISKCON who take advantage of this system very strictly, and they're making very rapid spiritual advancement. Sometimes we have a tendency to say, oh, I'm not Haridas Thakur, I'm not Prahlad Maharaj, I'm not Yudhishthira Maharaj. I mean, they were great sages, they make spiritual advancement. But even within the last 26 years, since Prabhupada created this come 30 years, we've seen the devotees who took advantage of the process and who followed the process with faith, and they've become very staunch devotees. We can also see that disciples of Prabhupada's disciples, or Prabhupada's grand disciples, many of them with faith in the words of the spiritual master, take to the process and they strictly follow the process, and they are also making rapid spiritual advancement. So the point to realize is that the path of devotional service is first given by the Lord, then passed on by the disciplic succession, is as potent today in 1997 Russia as it may have been 5,000 years ago in some part of India. So in other words, the potency of the holy name, the potency of devotional service, the potency of hearing this transcendental knowledge, the potency of doing practical service is as effective now as it ever was before. So it's just a question of our taking advantage of the philosophy and our endeavoring in the right direction. Endeavor has to be there. Without endeavor, there's no question of success. Krsna instructed Arjuna to become an instrument in the battle. He never told Arjuna, you keep sitting on the chariot and I'll do all the work for you. As they say, God helps those who help themselves. So those who want to make spiritual advancement, Krsna, who is residing in the heart, is anxious to reciprocate and create a situation how you can make spiritual advancement. Our goal should be to make spiritual advancement. Unless you're endeavoring to develop a higher taste, how will you give up your lower taste? Even in mature life, you don't give up something inferior unless you get something superior. Imagine to do that because they just can't get any other job. So at least they have some job, even though it pays them once in 6 months, they probably go on. So we have to endeavor to develop this higher taste. And that endeavor must be there. Prabhupada used to say that even a lion has to endeavor to get his food. When a lion is sleeping, the animals don't show up and say, please come eat me. I know you're hungry. In fact, everyone runs away from the lion. So endeavor has to be there. Krishna's mercy flows when the endeavor is there. Mother Yasoda was trying to tie Krsna with a rope. She tried very hard. Initially she did not succeed. But then she was successful because Krsna said, my mother is trying so hard, now let her succeed. So we have to endeavor to follow the process of devotional service. Then you'll be able to control your senses, and then you'll be satisfied with what is there by the arrangement of the Lord. Now, opportunity for every devotee to prepare to give a nice present to the Lord. How? By endeavoring to distribute these books. We should understand that the ultimate doer is Krsna. Obviously, the result of any endeavor is not in our hands. But certainly the initial endeavor, the freedom to endeavor or not, is in our hands. So Krsna says that if you sincerely endeavor, that even if you have some inability to do a job, I'll make it up. I'll give you the intelligence how to do it. Do you have faith in this statement of Krishna? Yeah, false faith or 20-30%. Frankly, you don't have false faith. Yeah, 20-30%. Actually, you should have false faith. So Krishna says, those who endeavor with determination, I give them the intelligence, I preserve what they have, and I make up what they lack. So we have to endeavor. And if we endeavor, Krsna will inspire us how to do the job. Above all, Krsna will be pleased with your effort. It's so easy to please Krsna. To please Krsna, you don't have to be a millionaire or a big scholar. You have to make a sincere endeavor. So if all the devotees make a sincere endeavor to take part in the Janamastri book distribution marathon, and whatever summers, I know that many of you do jobs, you have families, etc. But if somebody wants to, as they say, if there's a will, there's a way. If you're able to find some time to do it, then Krsna will be very pleased, and this will be a wonderful preparation for Lord Krishna's appearance there. So nothing can please Krsna more than our endeavor to distribute his transcendental knowledge. And if you endeavor, Krishna will give you the intelligence. Actually, we had no ability. We should always remember that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda are the most merciful incarnations ever to appear. And together, they are distributing so much sunshine. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, its effulgence is compared to the effulgence of thousands, millions of moons and suns put together. And if we endeavor by their mercy, difficult things become easy. And without their mercy, easy things become difficult. Krishna's Kaviraja said, by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a blind man can see, a lame man can walk, a deaf man can hear, a dumb man can speak. So, you may be dumb, lame, deaf, blind, still, by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you can get the ability. So please take part in this Janamaski book distribution effort. You'll get the mercy of the Lord, mercy of the acharyas, mercy of Prabhupada, mercy of your Guru, and you'll make spiritual advance. In other words, you'll get strength to become more determined to push on spiritual life. You give Kṛṣna, you get Kṛṣna. Kṛṣna reciprocates without surrender. And the way to surrender is not do what your mind says you should do, but to do what the acharyas say you should do. We've been surrendered to our mind for millions of births. That's why we've been rotting in the material world. But now's the opportunity to surrender to Krishna's mind. So please take advantage of this advice that Narada Muni is giving the Prachetas. Actually, this advice through the medium of Prachetas is for all of us. And you'll be able to make spiritual advance. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.